on Claude, on Gemini, Perplexity, and everything. So one of the ways that that can, to answer your question, right, instead of just a single ChatGPT prompt, right, one of the ways that I've used Agent.ai to just run the same prompt across multiple LLMs on the same place and try to understand saying which one suits my need the best. So think of it almost like a wrapper for multiple LLMs at one place, right? So I have the same prompt, right? And obviously, for some things, some LLMs work better than the others, right? And again, while I don't have a thesis yet on what works well there. A lot of things that I do, I run the same prompt across different ones, and I'll figure out saying, which one works best for me. And I'll give you an example a little later on, right? So one of the agents that I built on Agent.ai, even in one prompt, there were specific sections of it that were answered better by different LLMs. So it was almost like, I need this big thing done. Part one I got done through Gemini, part two through O1, and then something else, just put everything together and give me an output. So that is one of the ways where I've seen this work better than just a simple prompt on any of the LLMs that you would otherwise use.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, so now just going back, right? So let me start from scratch. So if you guys want to get started, so you go to Agent Builder, right? Agent Builder is where all of the agents you've built are shown, and any of the other public agents that let you clone and get started are here as well. So if you want to create a new agent, you go to here at the right top. And again, I prefer starting from scratch. Although to get started, you guys can actually use one of these to see how this works, right? So simple example, I want to call an LLM, right, which is what I was talking about right now. So it kind of again, so it starts with this settings part where you give it a name, you give it a description, can choose an icon and so on, right? Then you've got the trigger, which is again, out of this, I've only tried manual and user configured schedule. I have not done any of the others. HubSpot anyway, since I don't personally use, I've not really had a chance to do it, but for now, let's focus just on manual, right? And at the end of it, I'll give you guys an idea of how the user configured schedule works, right? Manual is you go to the agent that you built and you click on execute, and then it runs. Now, if you go on action, this is where your agent is getting built, right?
Sorry, Rohit is saying, can we build one on the go now?
Yeah, I will come to that too. I will give you guys an idea. So my idea was, I think a couple of weeks back, you guys did the Newsuru agent, right, on Cursor. So I tried doing the same thing on Agent.ai yesterday, and it came out decently well. So I'll walk you guys through how do we sort of replicate the same flow on Agent.ai and see how it works, right? So we'll do that from scratch. But again, I'm just trying to give an idea of how it looks before we get started. Yeah. Cool. So since we said we replicated a call LLM copy, right? So this is how it kind of works. So the first part that it does is takes a user text, right, saying that what would you like to ask the LLM? That's number one. What that does, and okay, and what this does is it takes this output, which is what you've given, what you've answered, and it just gives it as an input to your GPT-4o, right, saying that this is what I want to research, and then prints the output for you to understand. So if I run this agent, right, this is a simple agent. So if I run this agent, I want to ask it about Indian Premier League, for example. Since it's starting, I'm guessing today, right, or tomorrow. Some of the LLMs are a little slow. I'm not sure why that's the case, but yep. So I've just said Indian Premier League, and then you can see that there's a output that's come, that it's a professional T20 league by India, blah, 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 blah. And that's how this works, right? So this is a very simple sort of a agent that is built where it takes an input, just runs your GPT-4o about what it means, and then gives that to you as an output. So this is kind of the base of how it works, right? So now if you want to go back and try to build an agent, let's try to do the same thing. So the Newsroom agent that Bala and TPK have kind of been building, let's do the basic one, which is you give a list of topics that you are interested in, and then you're going to take out the Google News for the last 24 hours about these topics, summarize that, and then give it to you as an output, right? So let's try to build that from scratch and see how it works Agent.ai compared to what Cursor did. So I'm going to go back to create agent. right? And I'm going to say start from scratch because it gives you pretty much a blank slate, right? I'm going to call this same. I'm going to call it 2.0 because I named one as 1.0 yesterday, right? Same description that you give, say you give topics as input, the agent searches Google News for the last 24 hours and summarizes it for you. Right, so the rest of it you guys can fill it up later. You can just give it. You can give it a name that that people can then look at. You can choose an icon. Again, visibility private is you can share it with people who have the link and use it. When you do it as public, somebody from the Agent.ai team actually checks the checks the agent and then sort of approves it to be publicly listed. I don't know what the process behind it is, but that's something that they do, right? Again, going to trigger, I'm going to keep it as manual only, right? And then going to action, this is where we are going to start building it. So think of the steps that are involved when you want to do something of the sort, right? I think the guys who were there in the session a few weeks back or who've seen the video, right? So what Bala and TPK did in that was you give a list of topics that you are interested about, right? And then what you do is you go to Google News, it searches for all of the news in the last 24 hours, right? Gives you what all are the links that show up, and then it summarizes all of it and then gives that summary to you as an output. So those are the same steps that we are going to follow here, right? So step number one obviously is to take an input. So when you go to add action here, right, which is where you add every step. So before I get started, let me at least let me just give you guys a quick idea of what are the steps that are. So you get user input, right, which is just text, which is what I'm going to use here, right? You can also upload files. So I'll give you guys an idea of how I use this in one of the agents that I built too, right? You can upload files, you can get a user list, and again, knowledge base and confirmation I've not really used. When you look at get data, there are a lot of things that you can do it. So they've you can get tweets, you can get LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn activity, website content, Google News data, a lot of things, right? So Agent AI automatically is integrated with a bunch of these. So the minute you say that I need this Google News data, it extracts it automatically for you. Similarly, you just give the LinkedIn profile or the LinkedIn name of somebody, it give you the profile as well as the LinkedIn activity of these guys and so on. Access HubSpot, I have not used at all because I've not used HubSpot, so I don't have a lot of context on how this is. If you go to use AI, this is the easy part. So LLM is the one that I was showing Vatsal's when I answered Vatsal's question earlier. So they've built a bunch of these models already. So not built, they've integrated a bunch of these models already. So you can. This is a place where you just write a prompt, right? You write a prompt, you select what LLM to use, and then it just executes it and stores it in a variable name.
Okay, one question.
Yeah.
For the LLMs, do we have to give our own API keys or just use a subset?
No, you don't have to give anything. It automatically takes the LLM to do it here, right? That's one of the ways where it's a little easy to use. You don't need separate keys for any of these.
Okay, lovely.
But isn't the usage capped then?
Sorry.
Yeah, it might be. Yes. So again, I think the way these guys have also built it is for people who are at least a lot of the people who are building are beginners like me. So for me, the usage being capped is completely okay. But you're right, it will be.
Thanks.
Right. Then you go to run process where there are slightly more complex things that are around. You can add for loops, you can add if else statements, a bunch of these. Again, we will do this when we cover the new through agent that we built now, right? Then you go to create output. Either you can print the output here, right? You can save it to a doc, or you can sort of send an email, which we will look at too. And advanced functions, again, I've not used because these are a little too complex for me. I've not gotten here yet. Maybe something that you guys can tinker with once you are done with the session. Right? So going back, we'll start with the user input, right? So I'm going to say what topic are you interested in, and I'm just going to give them examples, anything you guys want. I'm going to leave the default value as blank, and I'm going to save this in the variable name called user input, right? So I just click on save. This action is done. So one good thing you guys can do is you can keep testing it as you keep doing the steps, right? So the simple thing that I want to do is now I want to just print whatever I have gotten as an input, right? So I'm just going to go to that action, right? I'm going to go to create output and I'm going to say show output, right? And I'll say I want to print this with the header called output. Once I save this, right? So just wait for this thing to get saved. You can test it on the right. So if I say I want to again look at IPL and I say go, the output comes as IPL. So the first step, whatever you've done, you've taken the input and you've just sort of presented that as the output here, right? So this is kind of, you can keep testing the steps as you go along, right? And if you go to context here, it will also tell you every variable that you've used. So this is very interesting in the terms of you can actually sit, if things aren't working out the way you want, you can debug what happens. So every variable that you generate will show up here when it runs in the context part. So yeah, so let's move on from this. So I'm just going to delete this. I don't need this part. So now that I've gotten an input, the second step is getting the Google News data, right? So I'm going to click on Google News data. Query is whatever I want to research about, which is the user input, right? So once I give that, I can select what's the timeline I want the Google News from. We'll keep it as 24 hours. And the output variable, it's going to get stored in news data, right? You can give the location too, right? You can also take location as a variable from the user. So let us try and do that as well. So I'm going to add another user input and I'm going to say what country, for example, right? And I'm going to call it user. And now let's try and get the Google News data from. So I want to look at what are the topics, right? In the last 24 hours, news data is fine. And I want this in the location that the people give, right? So I'm just going to save this. So this will extract all of the Google News that happens here, right? Now let's again look at how do we print it. So I'm just again going to go to output. We'll do this one by one, right? So I'm just going to print news data and save. So if I want to run this again, so we'll quickly go again. Tell me if I'm going too slowly, but I just want to make sure that we are able to do it step by step before we put together the entire agent, right? I'll probably go a little faster a couple of steps down the line. So again, I'm going to say IPL. I'm going to say go. I want to look at it. Let's say how is IPL covered in the US? Right? These are all the news articles that talk about the IPL in the US, right? So you can see a bunch of these are are there as as a list, right? You can go scroll down. So now with this output, what we wanted to do was to summarize it, right? So if I go to context again, so you see news data is all of this. You've given the user location as USA, user input as IPL. Now we want to summarize what all these news articles are about, right? And we want to uh, print that out in an easily understandable format, right? So let's try and do that next step now. So one good thing is that you guys can keep switching something on and off every step. You don't have to delete it like I did last time. I just click on this and then this is going to get skipped when I going forward. So I'm going to go back to so now what I've done is I've taken the topic, I've taken the country, right, and I have extracted the all of the news in the last 24 hours in for this particular topic in this country, right. So the next step is to summarize whatever has come there. So go back to add action. Now I'm going to go to use AI, right? So you go to use AI, you click on this use Gen AI LLM. You can decide which LLM you want to use for this, right? So I think maybe something like a Claude might be good for this, or I think I use GPT-4o. I think was what I used last time. So again, this is just a simple LLM prompt that you guys can use, right? It's a basic prompt. Anything you guys feel like you can use it. One of the things that I have started doing of late is when I don't know how good my prompt is, I go to ChatGPT and I say, this is the output I'm looking at. Give me a prompt to do it. Right? And I think I did something like this yesterday as well. Okay, no, I didn't do it for this. I was doing it for something else, right? So basically, it gives you a prompt that you can then go ahead and use. But because it's a very simple use case here, let's look at it, right? So I'm saying that this user news data has the simple. Again, I know you guys would be who can do much better prompts. I'm not going to focus a lot of time on this, right? So I'm just going to let me just copy this, and I'm going to say this is the output from 4.0, right? So let's see if a different LLM gives us a different kind of an output, right? So I'm going to go to use AI again. Go to Gen AI. Let's see how does a Gemini do it differently compared to what your GPT does. Okay. So I'm going to do that, and let me say this is the output from Gemini. And the last part is I want to display this output, right? So I'm going to to add action again, create output. I'm going to say use output, and let's say this this is 4.0's output, and I will insert the GPT 4.0 variable, right? Which was the variable name, which was the output variable name from the previous step, right? I'm going to save this, and I am also going to create another output for Gemini, and again insert variable, this is Gemini, and save. So this again is a simple flow that we discussed, right? Where you said I'm going to take an input, I'm going to take the country, I'm going to get the Google News, and I'm using two different LLMs to kind of extract what the news says and summarize it for me, and then I am outputting both of it. So let's try and run this. So what topic am I interested in? I'm going to say IPL again. And I'm sorry, I clicked on restart by mistake. Again, I'm going to say USA for some reason. There you go. So you can see that there is a summary that both Gemini and GPT-4 have given, right? So you can see that recent news articles highlight several key developments, blah, blah, blah. 18th edition is supposed to start with RCB and KKR.
CP, one question on this.
Yeah.
Is this executed sequentially or is it running in parallel? Because you have given two models to run, right?
It'll execute sequentially as far as I know. I don't think it executes in parallel.
Right. But if you switch, let's say if you switch 5 and 7, then I'm assuming they will be skipped and only Gemini will run.
Sorry, if I give 5 and 7?
If you make the 5 and 7 inactive, then they won't run. That's what you said.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yes. So if I just skip this, then these two will not run.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. Right. So this kind of is a simple way of how this works, right? So now let's try and make this a little okay. Let me take a quick pause. Any questions, anything so far about what I've shown? Is this easy enough to follow?
Yes. So this is looking more linear. I mean, if I have to do something parallel, I was just I'm doing it parallelly also, but just trying to understand how do you go about that one.
Yeah, I have not done that yet. I am not sure if that's possible.
Okay.
To be honest,
Okay.
right? I've not
Got
played
it. No,
around
just
to figure
trying
that
to
out.
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
not played around with it enough to figure out if that's possible. But at least in the things that I've done so far, I've also wanted things to be done linearly. So maybe that's the reason that I've not figured it out. But I don't have an answer to that.
Got it.
Okay, I have one question, right, Siddhi? So, so can we give two inputs to the same output? So, for example, let's say I also am generating an image, and now I want the image and the summary come together as an output. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yes. So let's give a night. Let's try to give both of this in the same place, right? So I've given it as two outputs. I can go back here and say that this is GPT-4o. Then I'm just going to do it here, right? And say I'm also going to print Gemini. And I'll insert the Gemini variable. So if you do this, both of it is going to come in the same output.
Oh, okay.
So let's quickly do this too, right? So that's possible. Right. So if I say IPL again, so let's try India.
Also,
Let's see if it's
did you face anything with context windows because you are trying to run sequentially, trying to understand uh, if I insert, like I was trying to insert a few websites, did you face any challenges and other things around that?
what do you mean?
I mean, because you have limited context windows for the model, when you insert a lot of data and it's running sequentially, have you faced any challenges
No,
around
it's
that?
just time, nothing else.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, that timing in the initial thing is the one
Yeah,
which you basically. Okay.
correct. Right. So yeah, GMK, to answer your question, you can see 4.0 has come and the Gemini's outputs come right below it. So you can add multiple things to one output. Right. It can be images, it can be text, anything at all. Right.
Or you can combine this into a single summary. Like these are
Yeah.
two different.
Absolutely. So that
All
will
across
just be another LLM on top of it saying that, hey, I've got two outputs from two different LLMs. Why don't you club the two and give me a consolidated output? Right. And there's a use case for that. So one of the things that I'm trying to do, I've not yet built it. So one of the things I'm trying to do is something like a research tool, right? Where if I need any particular data points or if I need any specific numbers that I'm looking at, there's a high chance of hallucination if I use individual LLMs, right? So I found this with ChatGPT and with Perplexity. So one of the things I'm trying to do is ask a question, get the output from 4 different LLMs, and say that are these sources valid? Write a wrapper on top of that to say you go through each one of these sources, tell me if they're valid, tell me if multiple of these LLMs are giving me the same source, then there's a higher chance that that it's a good source, and then go and get data from that. So those are some of the use cases that you can look at when you try to club LLMs together, right? But anyway, going back to this, now let's try to add a little bit of complexity, right? So I've now tried to just get one topic that I'm interested in. Now what the newsroom agent that we built earlier, you could add multiple topics, right? So let's try and do that now, saying that I'm going to say I am interested in 3 separate things, right? Can I get the summary of all 3 printed out one by one, right? So the first topic, you can give it the same. I'm just going to say give comma separated values. So let the user give that. The location can remain the same, right? So now what you need to do is you need to kind of split the user input up into individual parts and then run the same process through each one, right? So now what Agent AI does is there is a follow-up. I think I quickly showed you guys that. So let's do that. I'm going to insert an action and I'm going to say run process for loop, right? So now you can loop it over the user input, right? And it will so the easy way you think of it is, if this user input is a list, it's going to loop through each of the items in the list. Those items are going to get saved in the loop variable, and the index is going to get saved in your for loop index, right? So and this starts from 0. So the first item, okay, let's quickly go through this. So if I give AI comma cricket, when it loops through it first, AI will get saved as loop variable. Loop index will give you 0. The second time, because the second variable is cricket, the second time the loop runs, this will have the name as the variable cricket. This is going to have loop index will say 1, right? So I'm going to save this as the for loop. And once you do it, you can see every subsequent step has now sort of shifted to the right under the loop, right? Now, one of the things that is there is that you need this to have like a Python string loop for Agent AI to loop over it. So a simple loop does not work very well. So whatever the user gives as an input, you will have to convert it into like a list of strings for this to actually work. So again, this is something that I figured more from trial and error and a little bit of research online. So now you need to convert whatever the user has given as an input into a list of strings, right? So I'm going to go here and say insert action, and I'm just going to use an AI to do this, right? You can use GPT 4.0 is, I think I can just use O1. I don't even need GPT 4.0. So I'll say user input has a list of has okay, or let me not even give that. I'll say check if user input has commas in it, right? Because we've told our user saying if you need multiple entries, give them comma separator, right? If it has a if it has commas, split. Actually, this is the reason. This is where I had used a sort of a GPT prompt yesterday, saying I need this. Take a text input, check if it has commas, split it, and add each text as a string. If not, create a list with the entire text as a string. And this was the output that ChatGPT gave me, right? So I'm just going to copy paste this, just so that it makes it easier for us. So if user input has commas, split the text by the commas and store each part as a separate string in a list, right? And if user input does not contain commas, store the entire text as a single string. Should return only the final list. Cool. So I'm just going to call this as a list and save it. I just want to make sure that this is there in the right place. Yes. So you guys can also move these up and down if you added it in the wrong place, right? So this is step number 4. You've taken. Sorry, this should actually be one step earlier, right? Because you've gotten the text, you've gotten the user location, and you're now trying to split the user input into multiple items in the list, right? So let's again see if this works well. So I'm going to disable all of the others, right? And let's just see if these 3 steps work well for us. So once it saves, let me again. Oh, sorry, I have to give 2 different ones. My bad. Let me country. I'm sorry, I have not added the output. So I have to show.
Right?
Sorry?
Should be there in the variables.
It should be there in the variables. I can go and see that. You're right. If you look at list, yeah, that's great, right? So this is what we kind of want, right? So now what we can do is continue with the rest of the thing. So I've gotten the input. Now I need the for loop first. So I'm saying now you need to, right? You need to loop over the list. You're not going to loop over the user input. That's a change you need to make. I'm going to loop over the list that I created, right? Save it under loop variable and for loop index is okay. Now you say that I am going to Google News on the loop variable, right? Because now loop variable is going to have the individual parts of your list, right? So initially we had said I need the Google News from the user input directly. Now I'm going to change it and say I need the Google News from the loop variable, because we are going to get it for each individual part, right? In the 24 hours, store it in news data, user location is fine, right? So this part again does not change. Sorry, I don't need this part, right? This part does not change. I am saying the same thing, saying news data has the Google News article about a topic, analyze the articles and give me a 300 word summary. Let's stick to one LLM for this. I'm not doing both, right? And the next part I can do is this. I'll go and I'll only give it one output. And here again, instead of any random header, I can say that this is the summary of loop variable, right? This is the news. And I save. Done. And in the end, you will obviously have to end the for loop. So you go here, right? You again insert an action. You go to run process and you say end if else for statement. So this has no inputs, right? So once you do that, your loop ends here, right? So now let's try running through this entire part and let's see if we are able to get the new summaries for two separate topics that we would want to give. Let me try to do the same thing. I'm going to say IPL and I'm going to say AI. And I want to do it in India. Can go back to context. You can try and see what's happening here while it runs. Right? If we are a little too. Yep, there you go. So news summary. Oh, I think I made a spelling error in news. But anyway, news summary of IPL. You get a bunch of things around that. And then news summary of AI. Right? So this is what the system has done. So we've successfully taken two inputs, right? We've looped through both and we are able to get the summary of both of these, right? So you can also add a bunch of other things. So if you want to know what are the actual links that showed up here, you can get that too, right? So once you have the, give me a second. Yeah, so Google News gives you all of the news data. You can also ask this thing saying that also give me all the, again, I'm just writing a very simple prompt. You can make it better over time from the news articles. And then you will be able to get what are the URLs, what are the news articles that this came from to. So this is a very simple way that that the Newsuru agent works, right? It takes an input, looks at the last 24 hours of Google News, right, and then goes and outputs it. Now there are two additional things that you guys can do. So I'll come back to this trigger, right? So you can say user configured schedule. Once you do this, after the first time you execute it, you can set certain frequency in which it will auto execute, right? So let's kind of go through this and see this also once. At the end of it, when you guys are done, you can publish changes and then sort of that just saves the, I mean, auto saves it, but then the agent officially kind of gets published when you do that. I only do this when I'm completely happy with what output I get, right? So Let me just try one for the sake. So because I selected sort of, you can trigger it at regular intervals, right? So once this runs for the first time, you can then say, give me the frequency at which you want this to execute. So if you go down, so you can see this has also given a bunch of URLs that have come in, and you can say auto schedule. When you auto schedule it, right, you can choose, again, this is not very configurable, but you can say daily or every week or every month or every quarter. And once you save it, this would kind of get auto saved, right? Your schedule gets made. Again, any questions, anything about what we've done so far?
Yeah, I have one question. So let's say one of the input is not working. How do you debug? I mean, is there any format in which error is known?
Sorry, one of the
Line items, right? Like the workflows. If there's an issue in one of the workflows, how does it show up?
yeah.
Does it
So
even
honestly, you'll have to go through each one of the points, right? You'll have to go through every single one and try to understand. See, if the final output doesn't work, then you'll have to go individual line and figure out where it doesn't work. So the
Okay.
two ways that I do it is either looking at the context, right? Understanding if the variables are what they are supposed to be, right? Or you keep printing it, giving multiple print options as you keep going on, keep outputting what you want, and then keep debugging where it's going wrong.
I see. Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Prasanth, one question. So does it only accept user input as text, or can we add images?
No, I don't think you can add images right now. You can add documents, but I think you can add images actually. You can add. I've used documents as inputs. While I've not tried images, I'm sure that's possible.
Okay.
So these agents are more for personal use, or is it something you can deploy and enable others to access?
So basically, I have used it more for personal use. Again, if you look at the advanced option here, right? Sorry, not here. So if you go to the advanced option here, they do say that there was somewhere where I said you can you can sort of do a webhook where you can use it, but I've sort of not experienced, or I've not done enough of those. I've been using it primarily for making my life easier.
Got it.
Yeah. So again,
One more question, Siddhi. So
yeah.
apart from the triggers being manual or scheduled, can there be other triggers like say an email coming through as a
Yes,
trigger? Or
they do give you multiple triggers. Again, this is the one where you say that you can access via email, but I've not tried it out yet.
oh,
Yeah.
there's a webhook here only.
Yes, it's right
There's
here,
a
right?
webhook
So you can
also.
set the trigger while you create the agent itself. Oh yeah, the webhooks here, right? So these are things I have not explored yet, right? I've primarily only explored manual. User configure I did yesterday night because I was playing around with it a little bit more. But these are the other options that it gives you for triggers.
Okay.
Cool. Yes, I
Hey,
believe.
Prashant, one question. Um, since you have tried this Agent.ai enough, right? Have you found it limiting in some cases? Because this seems like a very sequential flow, and then it's a templated block of things that you can do, right? Have you struck a point where it doesn't work and
Yeah.
you need some more customization?
See, customization, no, because again, I have not used it. I see, I'm not using this, or rather, I am using this more for personal use, right? So customizations, I have not found the need yet, right? At least personally, but limiting, yes. So there are times when I try to do something complex, and if there is, let's say, I'm using an LLM in between the flow, right? If it fails, the entire flow fails. Then I have to go and restart it from the top. So those are some of the challenges that I have faced, right? If it times out, or for whatever reason, if that output doesn't come, you literally have to start from scratch, and it takes you a lot longer to figure out what the issue is. So that is a little frustrating, every now and then. But yeah, but in terms of customizations, I've not used it enough to face that.
Got it. Thanks, Prashant.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, I hope this was helpful. Uh, I just wanted you
One,
guys go through.
anything, any successful use cases which you are using repeatedly on this? I just want to know more.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. I have to share the screen again. So again, like I said, I had a few very specific use cases when I started with Agent AI. There are two or three that I've actually done. So one that I built for this thing was a blog brief generator, right? Where essentially you want to write a blog, you give the topic, you give which company you're writing it for, right? And then it gives you an entire brief with these are all the inputs. You give the blog, you give what company, you give the website, your keywords, your goal, target audience, and it gives you an entire brief in terms of what your blog should be. So this is something that I built. That's something that Tara, my wife, actually uses now, right? And here also you can see that I've used a bunch of things. So I go to Google and say, in this particular location, you give me all the search queries. Then I use O1 and say that tell me, give me the URLs here, and then there are queries that say that you are an SEO expert. Give me the entire blog structure. What should be the H1, H2, H3? Of all the competitors whose blogs are showing up for the keyword. Tell me what do they do well, what do they not do well, what should we do better to rank better, and then put it together in terms of an entire brief that you can then sit and write on. So again, this doesn't generate a blog in itself. This just gives you a brief that you can use. So this was one that we are actually using. One more that we kind of built was this. Again, if you want ideas for LinkedIn posts, right? So one of the things I'm doing is taking the company information and and I'm saying you upload a document of the post that your competitors have done. So I couldn't find out a way to automatically extract this from LinkedIn, saying if my competitors are X, Y, and Z, can you go to their pages and get their posts for me? That is something that I didn't do. So as a simple workaround, I said, okay, you guys go download that as a document and upload it. And once you do, what this does is it analyzes what the competitors do, what your company does, and gives you a list of X number of posts that you can then use for LinkedIn. So this is more like a social media agent that I made. Uh, After this, there are a couple of others, like I said, that I'm working on. One is this data research tool, right? This is the one that I initially mentioned, where I'm taking a bunch of LLMs, I'm taking multiple sources, and I'm trying to sort of reduce the hallucinations in kind of data that a single LLM will put out. So if I've got a topic that I need either some data point on or some quote on that I can use in my output, this will go search the web for multiple LLMs will search the web for those topics. I will find out where I'm trying to find out what are the constant, sort of what are the sources that are repeated among all of these LLMs, and just use that. And then on top of it, what I'm trying to do is to see that if the source still exists, right? Because one of the things we've seen, one of the things I've noticed is that because a lot of these data is cached, they give you sources from few years back, whereas the link doesn't actually exist. So not the blog, maybe a downloadable PDF or something that they would have put out at a point in time previously doesn't exist any longer. So I'm trying to do like a double check on that, saying that, okay, I've got all of the sources. Let me actually go and check if the source is still valid. If the page gives a 404 or a page not found error, I discard those. And anything that exists, then I try to get a source from that and give it. So this is something that it's more for just research. But yeah, these are some three examples that I've actually been using over the last month or so.
How does the costing work for this? Is it
It's free
free?
right now. It's free right now.
Got it. You showed the research thing, right? How is that when compared with, let's say, if you work directly on perplexity or deep research?
Perplexity, right? So
Yeah,
even at perplexity,
such a
perplexity,
difficult.
but yeah, even with perplexity, some of the times what I've seen is it it gives you outputs that's not always there in the source that it picks it up from, right? Because it adds its own logic, saying, I guess that from what this URL says, this will be the answer to your question. So I'm just trying to cut down on the guessing part. So basically the logic is the same. I give the same prompt to Perplexity versus a Gemini versus a O1 and a DeepSeek, and then everything that these four throughout. Then I say that okay, what is common across all of them, and then try to say that okay, then the source is valid if everybody says it's valid. So it's not going to be 100% accurate, but then it just increases your probability of getting a better answer. So that was the logic behind starting to build that.
Nice.
And Prashant, what does credits do? I see like credits when I sign up for.
Nothing right now. Again, almost every agent you see, it says 1 credit per task. I haven't really seen it. At least I think they have a plan for it at some point in the future. But right now, you can just ignore it. It's just there.
Okay.
Lovely. I think I had been pushing this for so long. Thanks for the session today.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very basic, but yeah,
This is quite powerful actually.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see whatever we did over 4 or 5 sessions.
I didn't want to say that, Bala.
That is a reality.
Yeah, that is the reality.
I think I tried creating a custom GPT, and I think that is quite simpler when I look at this one. This has got more possibilities. You can do much more than what you can do with a custom GPT. And I think custom GPT is quite limited compared to what.
yeah. Oh no, that absolutely, yes.
But this goes with that concept of like you'll have your own swarm of agents doing work for you, kind of. So that is what I feel like.
Oh, and one thing I missed out, right? So you can actually, in your agent, you can use any of the other agents that have been built on the network. So that's something that they've given. Let me again just quickly show that. While I've not used it, I've tried to use it, but so if you go to action, right, and you go to advanced, you can say invoke another agent, right? And if you know the agent ID, or you can just go and search for the agent that you want. And yeah, and whatever is the output of that, you can continue using in the one that you currently have. So that's another thing that that these guys have done pretty well, where you don't have to replicate if an agent that suits what you need is already built on the network, just go ahead and use the output that it generates. So eventually, yeah, I think they are trying to get a bunch of agents that all talk to each other and try to do what you want.
Wow. This is amazing. So, but CP, thanks so much, Ra. This was very, very useful actually. Quite an amazing session.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Siddhi. Thank you so
This
much,
was
Siddhi.
great.
Thanks, Prashant.
Thank you
Thanks a
guys.
lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.